Okay, welcome back, Programming 12. I'm going to continue on with some animation. Hey, I just wanted to finish up with a quick tip about replacing these values. I'm kind of backwards adding in the color palette, right? So I want to put in, instead of wherever I see this hex code, which is hard to determine, I want to put in the word red. So, if I could go just manually go change those things and type them in. But there's also a way you can do it that's a little bit faster. You can Control F or Command F. And then you can search and replace for things. So for example, I can search for this hashtag and replace with the keyword red, and I can just replace everywhere. And so everywhere it goes, where you saw that, that code, it now has replaced it with red all through my project, and I didn't have to worry about it. I can do that with green as well. So I can be like, oh, sorry, green. There's a bunch of greens. I don't know where, but I don't have to. I can just be like, replace green. Replace that code with green, and instead of find, click replace all, and it'll just go and change them all. Oh, blue. Oh, I think I screwed up. I think I put the wrong one in there. So I'll just press Control Z. Actually, I don't know. I think that's correct. I guess that's the one place you don't want it to go is the original. So I guess I screwed that one up a bit. It's a good Command Z, easy to undo, and go from there. So yeah, let's Control F or Command F is a really nice way to sort of replace a bunch of different things at once. I'll leave that for a later time. What I want to do now is make some animation. So here's my house, and I like to make the sun, travel across the screen, as if it is, the day is going swimmingly, and the sun is traveling across the sky. We can make it go in different directions, but let's say we want it to go up and down. So that can't really happen right now because my sun is hard-coded to be at these coordinates. So that sucks. So what I'd like to do is make those variables. What kind of variable would be appropriate for this? Well, you could use a float or an int. It doesn't really matter at this point. I think the only difference would be for if you chose between an int and a float, and you want to change the value over time so it moves, then that could be a problem if you chose an int and you want to go like by half a pixel each frame or something like that. So that is a bit of a problem. So I think I'll make my variable a float. So I'm going to go at the very top where my space is, and I'm going to make animation variables. I can spell. Yes. Okay, and then I'm going to make a float. Float sun y. And that just reminds me this is the sun. I might have other variables later on, so I don't want to have y1, y2, y3. Those are garbage names that'll be confusing for other people. But I know, oh, that's the sun's coordinate, right? The sun's, especially the sun's y coordinate. So do name your variables appropriately. Okay, so wherever I use my sun now, I can place that with sun y. Its default value is 0, so I probably should give it a default value. You can give it right here in animation, when you declare the variable. I like to do it in setup, just to remind myself that it's sort of a different step, and then they'll all be kind of together. All the initializations, if I have many variables, can be together regardless of how I organize the declarations. So I'm going to set that to 150. And if I run the project right now, we'll see nothing is different. The sun is still in the same place because the code is telling it to draw at 150 comma sun y, which is its value is 150. So cool. So now what we'd like to do is change that value. And because the draw function is constantly rewriting the code, the image that it's drawing on this screen right here, it's constantly redrawing this, then as we change it from one frame to the next, it will move the sun. So let's go ahead and change its value. So where should we put this? Should we put it with the sun, or should we have a separate section for animation? It's up to you. There's no correct answer. I'm going to just put it right here beside the circle, just so that it's all in one place on my screen. But I could see a good argument for putting the animation in a separate place, the actual changing of values. So here's how you might change a value. I could say sun y equals sun y minus 1. So this is not an equation, because that would never be true, right? There's no value that equals itself minus 1, right? Like 150 doesn't equal 49. But it's an assignment. So we're saying we're going to assign the variable sun y this value, which is 150 minus 1. and it will overwrite the previous value. So it was 150, but after this happens, it'll be 149. And that happens every frame. And remember, the draw function happens 60 times a second. So over the course of 1 second, we will have subtracted 1 from the y coordinates of the sun 60 times. So it'll be 90, I guess, after 1 second. So that's pretty fast moving, so we might change. If we run this, we'll see what happens. And the sun is going up and up into the sky. Hey, where did it go? It's gone. So, it's not going to stop, and things can go off screen. That's entirely by design. So, that's great. So let's just see that one more time. Here we go. The sun is rising up on the screen. You might wonder, what's the, how does it just redraw what's going on? I'll just remind you that it redraws the entire sketch. And if you don't have something in the background, like we have the sky in the background, you get some funny things. So let's just get rid of the background for a second. And you'll see that we get this streak, this sudden streak that goes up. The reason why it's not replacing when we remove the background is because nothing's drawing over top of it to erase the previous suns. So we get these streaks that happen. And that has been useful in the past. We've used that for interesting things. But for the most part, when you're just doing like a good old-fashioned animation, you want to erase previous frames by having some kind of background that covers that up. It doesn't have to be background. It could be a rectangle. It could be all sorts of different shapes or whatever you want to do. It could be an image. You name it, but something that covers up the previous frames. Our blue sky background does that for us. Okay, so that's how we can change values. Of course, if we were to add to it, it would go down. And of course, we can do there's the sun setting now. Whoa, look at that. It's surprise. The sun went over top of the ground. And of course, that has to do with the order of things. So sometimes when you go to animate, you'd be like, ooh, the ground probably should be after the sun. So the sun sets behind the ground. So these are things that you might discover only after you start animating. And that's easy to fix. So I would just take this and I would put it after. Whoops. I copied. I would just take this and put it after the sun. And then run that. And then you'll see that the sun can go behind the ground, which makes a lot more sense. Nice. Oh, there we go. Okay, so next I'd like to add in a loop. I mean, it's already looped, right? It's redoing this over and over again, and that's lovely. It really makes this all work. But I would like the value of the sun to reset itself. So after maybe it sets, we can teleport it back up into the sky or something and make it come back again. So that would be really nice for that to happen. So it doesn't quite simulate actual real physics of days and nights, because we're not going to have a night just yet. But I want you to start thinking about that, because that's going to be one of your checkpoints coming up. So that's fine. So let's just start. Oh, I didn't mean to select the whole thing. Let's just start thinking about, well, how do we reset it? What we're going to need is some kind of decision-making structure, and that's going to be the if statement. The if statement will allow us to ask a question about a variable. So we can say if a variable equals a certain value, or it's less than a certain value. So for example, we could say if the sun is less than the height of the screen, then we can do something. So we're going to put in some braces here. This is another block of code. So blocks of code, remember, are groups of code that we can define with an open brace and a close brace. So all the code we put inside of here, that block of code will only happen when this is true. When the sun is less than, I might actually say greater than the height. When it goes beyond the height of the screen. So greater than is really important there. So what is this going to be? So I'm going to put in a new assignment. So let's say sun y equals, let's say it's negative 200. So in other words, it's going to be constantly increasing until, like, every frame is going to do this and do this and do this and do this. It will check to see if it should do this every frame, but most of the time it won't. When this is 150, well, that's not greater than height. But eventually it will be. If we keep on adding 1 to it, we'll get to 100 and, or whatever the height is. Let's see. The height is 600. So we'll eventually get to 600 and then 601, and then that'll trigger this. That'll reset the position. So if statements are really handy for making those kind of choices. So here our sun goes, it goes, it goes, it goes, sets beyond, and it's still going down. We just don't see it because the ground is covering it. And then eventually it'll go to the top of the screen again. We get this kind of loop of animations happening. So that's pretty handy. Okay, so it's going to be checkpoint time. I'm going to explain the checkpoint in the next video, and I think you'll enjoy making it become, sunny and then dark again, and then the moon will come out, and then it'll become, night, and then it'll go back to day, and this endless kind of loop. So we'll take a look at an example in the next video. Thank you.